Hello YouTube, this is Zach, and today I'm going to be analyzing Help by John Farnham. I believe this is a cover that he performed, and it's been highly recommended based upon my last John Farnham video that I did. And first off, I want to tell you John Farnham fans, thank you so much for appreciating me and accepting me. I'd never heard John Farnham before, but I was very pleasantly surprised, and I kind of learned quickly that he is an Australian icon, and hey, I can see why. The guy's super talented. He seems like just like a staple figure from Australia from what you guys have told me. So I'm very happy to talk about him again. First thing, I want to clarify a couple of things on that note from my last video. I had some comments of people saying like, oh, you don't appreciate what this guy's singing. You don't appreciate what this guy's doing. You're talking too much, blah, blah, blah. I had a lot of great comments and support from you all, but I had sort of this negative stuff too. So I want to clarify, maybe I didn't make it clear enough in my last video. I'm a singing teacher. Like, I actually teach singing technique. So when I listen to singers, I'm not listening to emotions. I'm not listening to words very much. I mean, those things are pretty subjective in terms of how you interpret them and the emotional effect that you get from them. And I know as a teacher that what I can best serve to my students and to all of you is my understanding and knowledge of the singing techniques and methods that they're using when they sing, so that you can maybe learn about this yourself and have a better understanding and appreciation of music, or so that you can maybe implement some of these things yourself. Now, I'm a singing teacher again, so if this video is too analytical and not reactionary in terms of emotion and that kind of thing enough, I'm sorry, that's just not how my brain is wired when it comes to talking about singers. So with that out of the way, I am very interested in singing this because I've heard a lot of good things, so let's get right to it. This is Help.
Thank you very much. I forgot one. This is the only song I know how to play on the piano, and that not very well. If you know the words, join in, okay?
He's humble, right?
Siding. When I was young, so much younger than today, never needed anybody help in any way. But now those days are gone, I'm not so self-assured. Now I find I've changed my mind, I've opened up the door.
Okay, so there's quite a bit to say about his voice right off the bat. First off, the guy, look at, he's exhausted, right? I mean, look, he's dripping sweat, from the lights and the performing and being on stage. But this is, I guess he says this is the last one of his set. So the fact that he's still hammering this stuff out with perfect intonation, great line, great legato, it still sounds like consistent phrasing. You're not hearing breaks in his voice. You're not hearing him lose tone. That's a sign that he's got a lot of vocal stamina. And I think that that's something that kind of goes underappreciated from audiences as a whole, of how much stamina it requires to sing on stage. I'm from an opera background, and even operas, even though they're 3 and 4 hour long performances, they're structured in ways to where the individual players in the opera are never on stage for too long at once. We're given rests and breaks and things like that. But with these like rock singers, popular singers that just have these massive sets and they sing straight through, it's nonstop. You might have like an intermission. You might be drinking water in between. You might have the band jam out to a little bit of a instrumental interlude for a while, but you're up there for hours straight, and the amount of endurance and stamina is incredible. Like, I think about some guys that I've talked about in the past, like Bruce Dickinson, and like he was so fastidious about being in shape and about making sure his body was physically fit, and that's what you have to do when you perform this kind of music. I've seen in some singers and popular singers, rock singers, country singers even, that they just don't really care about their health, and their performances deteriorate as a result of it. Some of the most popular names, you'd be surprised, like even like Adele, some people like that, of Haley Williams, they don't do the types of things that are necessary to take care of their bodies and take care of their health, and it's kind of causes their voice to deteriorate over time a bit. And so clearly John here has come up with some kind of regimen for himself that lets the voice stay consistent throughout the duration of such a big, long performance like this. And this isn't even talking about the singing itself. His timbre is very bright. Typically, the brighter timbres come from more neutral laryngeal positions, which is like the larynx is the voice box, where the Adam's apple is in men, you know, this area right here. This section is your larynx. And so when you have this sort of brighter timbre, typically the larynx is sitting here, you know, like around neutral. You know, for your classical sound and your operatic sound, you get a lowered larynx. It moves down like this. So he's singing with kind of a neutral laryngeal position. And that's why it's a little brighter. He's got great diction. You can hear all the words very clearly. Yeah, that's another thing that goes underappreciated in singers. Very often when singers get on stage, their diction suffers because they're so caught up in what's going on around them that they don't articulate. He's got great diction, balanced, even, bright tone, very stereotypical tenor. And I don't mean that in like a negative way. When I say stereotypical, I mean like the tessitura, or the average notes, the range that he sings, fits very much into like the prototype of a tenor voice. He's like right up in that middle high range of the male voice consistently. He navigates it very well. I mean, it's like, I'm a baritone, I'm a bass baritone. So whenever I see this stuff that's like seated up in the upper middle range, like I'm just like, forget about it. There's no way, you know, but he does a really good job of navigating that upper tessitura really cleanly, consistently. I don't see any particularly like egregious health risk type methods of singing or techniques that he's doing. Everything seems pretty consistent. He doesn't have a lot of facial tension, not a lot of neck tension. So far, so good. I mean, it's similar to the last performance. Just he seems like just a really solid, well-rounded singer that fits this style very well. Real quick, I hope you're enjoying this video, and if you are, please give it a like and subscribe. That will help me so much. Also, I do offer voice instruction. I'm a professional singing teacher, and I offer voice instruction through my Discord server, so I highly encourage you to join. That's where my entire community is. That's where all my students are. We do weekly vocal workshops. I do free vocal assessments for all incoming students, and it's just a really good place to be. I also do offer a Patreon if you want to kind of get a little bit more of a bird's eye view on the things I do, get early access to the videos and things like that. But yeah, please join my Discord server. I'd love to see you there. Hope you enjoy the video.
Help me. Yeah, I'm feeling down.
Oh yeah, there's that.
And I do appreciate you.
Wow.
Being right.
Yeah, he does that thing again that I talked about in the last video, and apparently you all told me from the comments that he does that to control the volume of his sound. That's a characteristic of his singing that I've now seen twice in 2 different songs, so I would imagine that it's something completely intentional. He's turning his head away from the mic on kind of the bigger notes, and yeah, if he's trying to avoid clipping, I can relate to that. I've actually had to turn the gain down on my microphone here some, because when I go to sing, I sing in an operatic sound and it's clipping my mic and it's too big, so I totally get that. There was something else. Let me look. There's something else that came to my mind here. Here, so yeah, that note is way up there. Like, I mean, I'm singing my head voice. I'm not singing chest voice like he is. That's way up there in the voice. And so what you can hear him do is a little bit of what we call the vocal hook. The vocal hook is where you move the voice into the upper register, but you don't use the entirety of the engagement of the muscle that controls the upper register. Now, to clarify, what I mean by that is you've got 2 muscles, the thyroarytenoid and the cricothyroid muscle, and those 2 muscles kind of work in conjunction when you're navigating the registers. Thyroarytenoid controls your chest voice, your speaking voice, your modal register, and the cricothyroid predominantly controls the head voice. And so what he's doing here is he's letting the voice kind of drift up into that cricothyroid engaged space, the M2, the head voice, the falsetto, whatever you want to call it. But he keeps enough TA, thyroarytenoid engagement, on the sound to where it still has presence, and it doesn't sound like speaking, but it has like an edge, like it's a little more prominent than if you did the pure head voice and it sounds like Mickey Mouse. You know, it doesn't do that. He's got a little bit of edge on it. He's a little bit of TA engagement. So, and you can hear this because if you listen to his timbre or the quality of the sound when it's lower compared to what it does when he moves up to the higher sound, it doesn't sound like a different singer, but the quality, while it sounds present, has a kind of thinner, edgier quality. Like right. Hold on. So listen to his timbre here. Now. So you hear a slight difference in his timbre, and that's just from that CT taking over and giving him a little bit of that head voice quality to his singing timbre, to his singing approach. And so that's kind of where that change in sound when he moves up the voice is coming from. I love his O's and his U's vowels. His rounded vowels, the O's, the U's, and even the neutral A's are very good, but particularly the O's and the vowels are really resonant, really nice. There it is again. Yeah, that high note there, he did the same thing, kind of keeping the thyrorytenoid engaged, but moving into the head voice. So you get what we will call a heavy mix, is kind of the colloquial term for it. He navigates that extremely well. That's very difficult. Ask my students, all of my students, well, not all, but many of my students struggle with that, like moving up into that space and keeping it consistent. It's a very common issue for people that are moving into the high range. So he navigates that extremely, extremely well. Yeah, nice. That was good. Same thing. Wow. That whatever the note is, I don't. Let me see if I can replicate it a little bit. I think those are the notes. I'm not singing them all together in a line like he is. I had to practice it to make sure I got the notes right, but that is a melisma. Whenever you sing a singular vowel or syllable and you carry that, on multiple notes, it's called a melisma. A lot of popular singers call that a riff or a run, that kind of thing. Really good control, especially up in that high range. I mean, this performance is different from the last one. It was You're the Voice. In that I think that he's really navigating the upper ends of his range a lot more in this song. I'm getting to hear how fluidly he moves into that upper tessitura, like that stuff that's consistently high. And again, going back to the very beginning, what I said, it's mostly impressive to me that he's able to maintain this degree of consistency after such he's at the end of a show. He's at the end of a performance, clearly. He said he's got one more song, so he's just nailing this after a whole show. That is insane to me, because typically when you get in later into sets, when you start singing and you've been singing for a long time in a show, that cricothyroid muscle that controls the head voice is one of the first things that starts getting tired, especially navigating the spaces between the chest and the head voice. So the fact that it's just so consistent, he's throwing his voice up into that upper range all the time, is really, really, really impressive stuff. That takes a lot of practice and a lot of control. I know that you guys told me a little bit about his training regimen and that he's had various forms of training, but he never really did anything super classical. But it doesn't really matter. I mean, you can still learn to do these things in a classical setting or non-classical setting. I mean, I teach classical technique, but I don't teach people to be opera singers unless they want to learn that style. And even in classical technique, we navigate that stuff. And so, it's kind of a ubiquitous all-around thing that part of developing into an advanced singer is controlling that motion up into that range and making it smooth and consistent. Yeah, crazy. Yeah, he's working. He is working hard, hard, hard. I mean, you can see it on his face. That is tough stuff, especially at the end of a big set. I mean, keeping that amount of engagement up in that range, that tessitura is really, really, really tough. I am very impressed by his endurance and his vocal stamina. That is tough stuff. Yeah, he's. Yeah, you don't hear. You don't hear his intonation sagging, like he's not out of tune at all up there. He's not compromising anything about his technique. I know I keep kind of belaboring the same point about his singing, but like, you know, every video I see of various singers shows me a different quality or trait of their respective singing and their voices. And what's really just jumping out to me about this particular video of him is just how consistent he is in this upper range, and how he's found a method and a technique for himself that lets him maintain it without really any major vocal compromise. A lot of times we in the singing world will call it marking, whenever you have to make some kind of compromise or take things back a little bit to be able to maintain it, you know, because you're tired or you don't want to oversing. He's not marking at all. He's just letting it rip, and that is, you know, just I'm not trying to say trust me, bro, but I will say, from the perspective of someone who has sung many live performances and sung many concerts and done multiple styles and sung in 3 and 4 hour long musicals and performed in operas, and, you know, I've done it all. It is taxing on the voice to sing for a long time. And so when I tell you that he's this type of stamina is one of the most impressive parts of his singing, just take my word for it. And I'm not trying to, you know, deflect from his actual sound of his voice or anything like that. I'm saying that a lot of the fact that his voice sounds as good as it does this consistently this late into the show is because of how much stamina he's developed as a singer. You just don't see that in a lot of singers, you know? You just don't. I mean, like I said, not even opera and classical singers tend to be on stage nonstop and, you know, sing at the top of their range all the time consistently. You just don't see that very often. It just doesn't happen that much. Yeah. He's great. Yeah, he's great. He's great. I've never really heard any of his music outside of what you guys have, you know, recommended and what I've seen through these 2 videos, but he is an incredibly consistent singer. I mean, like, I don't know how old he is in this video. I don't know, but he is amazingly consistent. That would be the term for him, is just vocal consistency, and that is not easy, being this consistent for entire shows, singing at the top of your range after a who knows how long set. Great control of the voice, mobile, agile voice, lots of melisma, great note choices on the melismas. The notes are really interesting. The lines didn't sound super traditional or cliche. They had really nice contour to them. Good O vowels, good ah vowels, good vowels, really rounded and clean sounding. Great control over moving into the M2 register while keeping the thyroarytenoid engaged. That's a tough thing to do. A lot of people struggle with that. Good stuff. Yeah, I wish I could do that. I mean, you know, he's just one of those guys that just has vocal folds of steel that can just let it rip and just go for it as long as he wants. Very pleased with what I've seen from him so far. Send some more recommendations my way and I will gladly talk about him more. I do teach voice, if you want me to analyze your voice the way that I analyze this, I know not very emotional, I know that, but I do have a soul, and I do have a heart. I just, when I get into thinking mode about singers, I don't really let my emotions get in the way about that. But yeah, excellent voice. If you want me to analyze your voice, I do it for free in my Discord server. Come join, and I do offer voice lessons. That's my job. I'm a professional singing teacher. And so that's it. I hope that you all enjoyed it, and I will see you all again soon. Thanks. Bye.